a touch away. Monday to Friday at 12:30 p.m. only on Bloomberg Quint.
Good morning. You're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint Live, India's first digital live streaming business news service. I am Agam Vakil. Here are the headlines. It's a muted start for Asian markets, mirroring Wall Street. Back home, India's third quarter GDP numbers are expected to moderate as NBFC lending saw strain and consumption moderated. Jet Airways lessors have grounded another 7 planes due to non-payment, taking the total count to 10. India hands over a dossier to Pakistan, proving JEM's hand in the Pulwama attack, demand immediate release of the Indian pilot held in captivity in Pakistan. US stocks inched lower for the second consecutive session on Wednesday, pausing their early year rally as analysts weighed comments from US Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and the latest batch of corporate earnings. Bloomberg's Abigail Doolittle sums up all the action in this report.
Stocks finished mixed and largely unchanged in Wednesday's Wall Street session. This after whipsawing between very small gains and losses. At the end of the day, though, the Dow was down about 0.3%. The S&P 500 down fractionally. The tech-heavy Nasdaq outperformed, up on the day, but up less than 0.1%. So very small moves, despite all of the macro factors playing out. In the U.S., 3 key congressional hearings were happening. Plus, we have the U.S. meeting North Korea, world tensions, India and Pakistan, the Brexit, lots of macro uncertainties. But the fact that stocks were largely unchanged, this tells you that investors are waiting for more cues around the U.S. corporate profit outlook and the global economy. Now, as for some of the big movers beneath that very smooth surface, let's take a look at Best Buy. Those shares were up sharply, soaring up 14% on a better than expected quarter in outlook. Campbell's Soup, those shares also up sharply, up 10% after they put up a very strong quarter under a new CEO, beating estimates. On the other hand, to the downside, though, the chips underperformed once again. That Philadelphia Semiconductor Index down more than 1%. That's considered to be a leading sector or tell on the broader stock market. So keep an eye on those chips. And among the bigger underperformers there, Micron and AMD both down more than 3%. Texas Instruments down about 1.5%. It was not a risk-off day, though. The risk appetite really more neutral, considering, again, stocks largely unchanged and mixed. Bonds were lower, not a haven bid, and commodities were higher. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
On that note, let's take a look at how Asian markets are faring at this point in time. Rosalind Chin joins us live from the Hong Kong studio. Rosalind, good morning.
Good morning. Well, there hasn't been a lot of great news on the data front to propel markets forward, and of course, not much of a lead from Wall Street as well. So right now, we're looking at the MSCI Asia Pacific Index losing 0.28%. Now, that data I mentioned, so we had China numbers in terms of factory output, and we saw that downturn deepening. It's the third straight month where the PMI came in at below the threshold of 50. Don't forget, though, February did have the Lunar New Year holidays in it, so that does make some difference in terms of the numbers, but still not great in terms of how that looks for sentiment. MLive, of course, our Bloomberg blog, do believe that this data may not be a big deal as long as there's progress on the US-China trade talks. However, even on that front, there's been a bit of stumbling. So we've seen Trump seeming eager and keen to push for some kind of agreement to be made with China. His trade negotiator, though, Robert Lighthizer, not so eager, a little bit more cautious, saying he wants to push for significant structural changes in China's economic model. So a little bit of a few more clouds coming across the horizon there in terms of those trade talks. In Japan, we've also had some data. We've had the factory output numbers showing that they fell more than expected in January. Overall, though, that has a trickle down into the market. So the Nikkei 225 down by 0.4, Topics down by about the same amount, Kospi down by 0.14%. Mainly electronics makers weighing on the gauge there on the Topics. Finally, a quick look at Forex. We've got the Japan yen, that's currently at 110.91 to the US dollar. That ticked a little bit higher on the China data, and the Aussie dollar paired its gains. Right now, the Aussie dollar is at 71 US cents, 71.38. In fact, China fixing 6.6901 versus the US dollar. It's actually the first time it's set a weaker yuan fixing since February the 18th there. And of course, we have to remember Trump is meeting Kim Jong-un for meetings today. Of course, how could we forget that is happening? That may yield some agreements that may affect sentiment. There is to be, of course, a signing ceremony happening this afternoon. Back to you.
Rosalind, thank you so much for getting us those updates from Asia. But what does that mean for Indian markets? Well, even if you leave out the global cues aside, we still have, well, your developments with respect to India-Pak relations, which may just have an implication on the markets. But at this point in time, we're not seeing as much of a reaction on the SGX Nifty, which is down as much as 17%, taking cues from its Asian peers. And while we did see a little bit of weakness come through on the Nifty 50 index, the mid-cap and the small-cap indices surprisingly resilient yesterday, outperforming the benchmark indices and advancing by as much as 0.4 and 0.2% respectively. The Nifty banking indices again throwing up a mixed picture. So we did see advances in the Nifty PSU banking index, but there's also largely on account of 3 other public sector banks moving out of RBI's PCF framework. But in terms of ADRs at this point in time, we're certainly seeing weakness in Tata Motors, Vedanta, Wipro, and ICICI Bank. So watch out for those, and a little more weakness in Dr. Reddy's, HDFC Bank, and Infosys. Now, coming down to your FIIs, well, we really didn't see too much of a movement, but surprisingly, for yet again, we did see incoming from FIIs of around 423 odd crores, despite the fact that we did have those, political tensions rising, and DIs, of course, bought stock worthy 67 crores. That's a very small number at this point in time. What also bear down on the indices was largely the usual suspects like Kotak Mahindra Bank, Infosys, HDFC Bank, and HUL. So watch out for that. Perhaps the more interesting part today will also be the expiry. So we are looking at rollovers at 44 odd percent. Well, traders clearly have been hesitant to take their positions forward, considering the geopolitical tensions at this point in time, which is why the rollovers are just a tad below your previous few-month average. It's the same for Nifty banking rollovers, which stand around 43%, largely in line with the Nifty. Now, this is your open interest distribution, and while you're on the higher end, the 11,000 call stands where those are one with the maximum open interest. On the lower end, we really it's tough to figure out where we could see the Nifty close. But at this point in time, there is a lot of conjecture that Nifty could very well hold on to about 10,800 mark, considering the writing of puts around that position. And while we have seen unwinding in that put, at least as far as yesterday goes, we're going to have to wait and watch how that pans out. But your wicks on expected lines rose quite substantially, up as much as 10.5% to around 18.9. Watch out for that. The Nifty put call ratio, not too much change there. It's the same for the Nifty banking put call ratio at around 1.08. And in terms of stocks, well, we only have 3 stocks now in the F&O band. We have Adani Enterprises, Adani Power, and Reliance Power, 2 stocks that move out of the F&O ban on expiry day. Interestingly, is IDBI Bank and Jet Airways, so watch out for that. Of course, we also have a lot of news flow on Jet Airways, so it'll be an important thing to watch out for. REC, NTPC, Torrent Pharma among stocks which are seeing surge in OI with 2 days, or rather now 1 day left for expiry. And I'm also keeping an eye on something like a Sun TV, which did see about a decline with its longs unwinding. But a large part of this is because of rollovers taking place, so you'll have to keep an eye on that one. On that note, let's now see what's making headlines across the globe. We have Selena Wang of Bloomberg News bring us the first word headlines.
President Trump and Kim Jong-un are optimistic at the start of their second summit as they attempt to advance nuclear talks that have largely stalled since they met in Singapore. The president said the first summit was very successful and he expects this one to be as good or greater. Kim said he will do his best to deliver the outcome everyone wants. More substantial remarks are expected later Thursday. Bank of Japan Governor Haruhiko Kuroda says he will keep buying exchange-traded funds even if the bank faces paper losses. He says the ETF buying is needed as part of the bank's stimulus package, but that the BOJ would have unrealized losses on its ETF holdings if the TOPIX falls below 1,350. The index closed Wednesday at 1,620. Kuroda says the bank won't face any financial issues because it can allocate reserves to cover any downsides. President Trump's former legal fixer has laid out a litany of allegations against his former boss, despite being assailed by Republicans as a convicted liar seeking publicity. Michael Cohen said everyone's job at the Trump Organization is to protect Trump, and that most people know they're expected to lie for him. Cohen brought up numerous legal threads, from hush money paid to a porn star before the election, to the president allegedly overstating his net worth in order to get loans. The president of Iran has rejected the resignation of Foreign Minister Javad Zarif. Hassan Rouhani said the resignation was counter to the national interest and he does not accept it. Rouhani implied backing from the country's supreme leader Ayatollah Yameni and has said Zarif is considered by the highest authority to be trustworthy and courageous. State media showed pictures of Zarif already back at work. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries, I'm Selena Wang. This is Bloomberg.
First, the impact of the NBFC crisis itself. So if I go back to, say, sometime in August, generally the companies were very bullish on the demand scenario. It looked as if we are heading to very good earnings season, especially heading into the festive season. And then we had the speed break of NBFC and the entire crisis that came about. I think that has had a significant second derivative impact on consumption. Whether we like it or not, many of them were funding second-hand trucks, scooters, consumption for durables, many of the other things. Yes. It came to a standstill. It has also resulted in larger issues like builders not getting funding. As a result, the construction has stopped, so the construction worker not getting his wages, and the entire second derivative impact of that. So I think the fact that we've had a significant slowdown in the third quarter is also related to the impact that the entire NBFC crisis has had. I think a lot of it that is abating now, and things are normalizing. I would just hope that RBI and the government take very stern steps as far as this is concerned to ensure that it doesn't spill over into the mainstream economy. And as far as the NBFC HFC is concerned, I've been very negative on HFCs in particular, and I've maintained this for almost 2 years now, and I still maintain the same. And my negativeness comes from the fact that if I look at a typical HFC, the book, it only about 60-65% is mortgage. The rest is all builder and lab book. And we all know that builders are having a lot of issues. A lot of banks are actually declaring them as NPA. But HFC seems to suggest that they have no NPAs at all. Everything is perfect. One or two stray incidents, but they have no issues, which can't be, right? So the crux of the problem is that HFCs are governed by NHB, which is the regulator. And in my view, they are a very weak regulator. And the regulations are not very strict. So for an HFC, you could restructure a builder loan and you need not disclose it to the minority shareholders. And I have been highlighting this to the regulator that they should actually change this so that the regulations are similar to banks. Like banks, you can't restructure even today after the Feb 12th guidelines. My point to them that, yeah, if they want to restructure, it's fine, but at least they should disclose it to minority shareholders. That hasn't happened, which is why we are seeing all sorts of rumors and crises floating around for HFCs in general. I think NBFCs come under Reserve Bank, so they are better governed than HFCs. So in my view, if RBI and the government come together and at least streamline some of these, that will go a long way in reducing the anxiety of a lot of people who are either lending to NBFCs, HFCs, or the deposit holders of some of these HFCs.
If that were not to happen, you fear we are just kicking a can down the road, some accident waiting to happen?
I think so, especially HFCs, because the builder exposure is too large and they are really not recognizing the problem. As a result, we keep hearing rumors which doesn't help their cause. It's not as if their market caps are safe. Their market caps have corrected 60-80%. So it's better to disclose it and take the difficult steps now and move forward.
So these are the stocks we need to keep an eye on today, starting with Wipro, aligned to acquire Workday and Cornerstone on-demand business. The deal for cash consideration of $110 million. Wipro expects to close the deal during fourth quarter of FY19. The business was acquired by Wipro in 2016 as part of the Aperio buyout. In Odisha Cement, certain mutual fund units valued at 344 crores have been illegally transferred by the depository participant. Units were held by erstwhile arms OCL India and Dalmia Cement East. Matter has been reported to appropriate authorities and investigation has been initiated by SEBI. Then we have Fortis Healthcare. IHH says occupancy at Fortis has risen from 62% to 65% currently. IHH is currently performing a purchase price allocation for the acquisition. Then we have Tata Metallics. Tata Metallics to increase DI pipe capacity by 2 lakh tons per annum and hot metal capacity by 0.7 lakh tons per annum. The capacity will be expanded by FY22 with an investment of 555 crores. Board also approved issuance of 29 lakh equity shares and 36 lakh convertible warrants to promoter Tata Steel on preferential basis. If shares and warrants are issued at yesterday's closing price, the company would raise close to 380 crores, according to Bloomberg Quint calculations. Upon conversion of warrants, promoter holding in the company would increase to 60.3% from 50.1%. And lastly, we should also look at Jet Airways. 7 more aircrafts have been grounded due to non-payment to lessors, with the total number of aircrafts grounded increasing to 9 and the fleet stands reduced to 115. The company says it's making all efforts to minimize disruption to its network.
If you do a summing up of the events yesterday, you see that India had made some very clear statements with regard to counter-terror actions. They had undertaken new measures. They have redrawn the so-called red lines by targeting a terrorist camp in Pakistan. They had used air power. That's another new development. And to top it all, they had got this broad support of the international community. Even China, which is very friendly to Pakistan, has taken a kind of took a very even-handed stand yesterday. They basically said they called on both sides for restraint. And the official state spokesperson in Beijing yesterday said, yes, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, the Pakistani foreign minister, had called him, but he had listened to his version of events, but again called on India and Pakistan to exercise restraint. So that was yesterday. Today this has happened, and definitely if an Indian pilot has been captured by Pakistan, it does constitute a setback, but I would say a relatively minor setback, for the simple reason that if you are in conflict, if you are in undertaking warlike action, there are bound to be losses. And I think this capture is extremely unfortunate, and the Pakistanis will of course play it to the hilt as far as they are concerned. They will use the propaganda value from it, but I don't think that should detract from what happened yesterday and the fact that new red lines have been established. And I wouldn't even say red lines. I think what we have done is really extend, we have established our red lines, saying that if you attack us, if there are terrorist attacks on India, please be ready to face consequences, even in Pakistan.
I think so far it seems to me that this conflict has been contained and it has not escalated very badly. And I think we should leave it at that. There is enough opening for us. Both Pakistani military and Prime Minister Imran Khan himself have counseled for peace and not allowing the conflict to escalate. In fact, I was very struck by what Imran Khan said, that in war there are miscalculations, and I think we should not discount that. So far what has happened is that we have undertaken a strike yesterday against a terror camp. And Pakistan was bound to retaliate. This morning when they retaliated, they issued a statement, and I think it is a very carefully worded statement from their side, that their strike was also against non-military targets, avoiding the human loss and avoiding collateral damage. So I think all these signals coming in from Pakistan at this stage clearly point out that they are not wanting escalation, and India has also said the same thing. So I think what has happened is very unfortunate. From our point of view, we have very clearly and resolutely conveyed a message to Pakistan establishment that terror attacks would not be tolerated, and that we were ready to take it a step further.
But there's four different forces that are driving between both India and Pakistan. Of course, with India, you've got a vibrant democracy, and so the people have a pretty strong say in terms of what they expect their government to do and to react when you have terror attacks, and to follow through with that. But in Pakistan, you have this strange dual beast where you have a weak civilian government, but of course a military that really drives most of the establishment and will really take the final call on when it's time to stand down. And they're not as much driven, of course, by elections and voters, so a little bit more space on the Pakistan side, as well as a bit tighter control in the media. So when you look at the two sides, there's different factors that drive both. Pakistan wants to have at least a little bit of tension in the relationship at all times, because that's what allows the military to retain its position, top governance in the country. But I do think they also don't want to make sure this spills over more widely, because they've seen this time versus 2002 versus 1999, the world has taken a side more starkly than ever before, and clearly in India's side, even China, as a previous speaker had mentioned. So very different, I think, Pakistan reaction they're seeing from the world this time versus previous times tensions have escalated.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
이국의 늑다리 미치광이를 반드시 불로 다스릴 것이다.
I really believe that it makes sense for North Korea to come to the table and to make a deal. You deserve the Nobel Prize. Everyone thinks so, but I would never say it. Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un.
공화국 국무위원회위원장이시며 조선인민군 최고 사령관이.
You people are going to have to travel because you'll be in Singapore on June 12th. Good picture, everybody, so we look nice and handsome and thin.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Thank you,
everybody. Kim Jong-un wrote a letter, a beautiful letter. We fell in love. Okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. I like him, he likes me. I guess that's okay. Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say that?
또다시 미국 대통령과 마주 앉을 준비가 되어 있으며 우리 인민의 인내심을 오판하면서 일방적으로 그 무엇을 강요하려 들고
If I had not been elected President of the United States, we would right now, in my opinion, be in a major war with North Korea. I hope that very positive things are going to happen. I think that it'll be a very exciting couple of days. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
Now, there's lots to talk about over the course of the day, and you will find all the live market action on Bloomberg Quint. There are also a few stories that you should consider reading on our website, bloombergquint.com. Here they are. Debt-laden Jet Airways troubles do not seem to be ending, as additional 7 planes have been grounded due to non-payment of lease rentals. This brings the total number of planes grounded to 13 in the month. And Odisha Cement, soon to be renamed Dalmia Bharat Limited, has filed a complaint with regulators and the police after a depository participant transferred mutual fund units of the group's arm. The complaint said that the mutual fund units worth 344 crore rupees were illegally and unauthorizedly transferred by the demat accounts of Odisha Cement and Dalmia Cement East. That's a wrap on this edition of All You Need to Know. Stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint for more news and updates.